I started my night shift at the delivery service 3 nights ago. It was my 3rd night in a row, and I thought I had adjusted to the routine. The sound of my keyboard clicking and the dull hum of fluorescent lights felt safe. I had taken this job to pay off my student loans and get my life back on track. But something felt off this night. The weather reports kept talking about a storm warning for 5 days. I could hear the wind picking up outside, rattling the windows. I tried to focus. Then I heard the whispers from the apartment next door. At first, I thought it was just my neighbor talking late. Maybe he was on the phone, but the tone was unsettling. Hours passed. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread pooling in my stomach. I rubbed my eyes, wanting the voices to stop. I glanced at the clock. Time seemed to stand still, like I wasn't making progress. Then the laughter started. It was muffled and haunting. Each night, it grew clearer, but I could never understand what they were saying or who they were. My heart pinned itself in my throat as I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. I told myself I was rational, but my imagination felt like a wild animal. I caught sight of my neighbor a couple of times. He was a middle-aged man, often standing in front of his window, looking out with no movement at all. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt his eyes on me. It made my heart race even more. I often wondered if he had kids. I had never seen any. Why was I hearing laughter then? No matter how I tried to focus, the whispers made my skin crawl. They called to me like something was trying to get my attention. I'd freeze, my palms sweaty. I just wanted to work. Then there was a noise, an uneasy ring. My phone buzzed, slicing through the tension. I felt sick. As I looked up, our eyes met. My neighbor was standing there, staring straight at me. When I realized it, he turned his head quickly, like he felt my gaze. My breath caught. I didn't know what to think. His posture was still, like he was watching. Anxiety gripped me. The childish giggle echoed in my wall again. I turned around, panic rushing through me. There was no child. It was just me and him in that moment. Something wasn't right. I needed to find out what was happening. My heart raced as I picked up the phone to dial emergency services. I needed help, but my voice wouldn't come out. I opened my mouth, trying to speak. Then I heard a whisper. "Why are you with her?" It felt like ice in my veins. I spun around, looking for its source. There was no one there. When I turned back, my neighbor was gone. I felt trapped in my chair. I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was lurking, watching me. I was sure it was just the night. But now, I wasn't so sure of anything. I sat at my desk, hands trembling over the keyboard. The weight of the night felt heavier than before. I couldn't shake the chill creeping down my spine. I needed to get a grip, but every sound outside made my heart race. Raindrops beating against the window and the howling wind were relentless. I forced myself to look away from the screen. The whispers still echoed in my mind, melodic yet sinister. I had to confront my neighbor. It was the only way to silence the noise. Maybe he could explain what I was hearing, or at least tell me it was all in my head. I stood up, knees shaking. The hallway felt dark. Shadows danced along the walls. I reached my neighbor's door and raised my fist to knock. As my knuckles brushed against the wood, I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if there was nothing to explain? I took a deep breath and knocked. Silence. My heart pounded in my ears. I waited, half expecting him to answer, but nothing happened. I knocked again, harder this time. Still silence. That's when I noticed it. The door was slightly ajar. The breath caught in my throat. It shouldn't be open. My instinct screamed to back away, but curiosity pulled me in. I pushed the door wider, peering inside. The apartment was pitch dark. I scanned the shadows, searching for any signs of life. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. No response. Yet the laughter, that same haunting sound, echoed through the apartment like a trickling stream. The sound slithered down my spine. I took a cautious step inside, my eyes adjusting to the darkness. The air was stale, carrying a scent of dampness and something else I couldn't place. A chill enveloped me. I walked further in, my heart racing. I spotted a flicker of movement in the corner. I turned just in time to see a shadow dart away. My breath caught. "Is anyone there?" I shouted, more afraid than I had ever been. The laughter erupted again, this time sharper, more pronounced. It felt like it was teasing me. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the back of the apartment. I jumped, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I wasn't alone. Whatever was happening in here was real, and I was in the wrong place. With trepidation, I moved toward the sound, pushing past scattered furniture. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, ready to call for help again. But before I could dial, I noticed something on the floor. Papers were strewn about, just like in my own apartment. But they were different. Drawings from children, crayon-marked scrawls filling the pages. That's when I saw it. A framed photograph lying cracked near a broken lamp. I leaned closer. It was a picture of my neighbor, but there were kids in the frame. 3 smiling faces I had never seen before. My heart dropped. The laughter crescendoed, and I instinctively backed away. I heard whispers again, clearer now, spiraling around me. "Why did you come in?" they taunted. "You shouldn't be here." Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and dimmed, plunging me into shadows. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Something cold brushed past my cheek. "You'll find out soon enough," a voice whispered next to my ear. I was not alone, and the darkness loomed closer. I stumbled back, my heart racing. Panic clawed at me as I tried to grasp at the edges of reality. The cold air pulsed around me, pressing in, making it hard to breathe. I could barely see my hands in front of my face. "Hello?" I called out again, my voice shaky and small. Suddenly, a flicker of light burst back into the room, illuminating the scene before me. I squinted, adjusting to the brightness just in time to catch a glimpse of something moving in the shadowy corner. There it was again, a small figure darting behind a half-toppled bookshelf. "Who's there?" I demanded, swallowing hard. The laughter echoed once more, louder and more sinister, as if inviting me to come closer. I stepped forward, trepidation clawing at my gut. Whatever I was facing was aware of me, and it delighted in my fear. As I approached the bookshelf, I noticed the drawings scattered across the floor again. They weren't just crayon marks, they were messages, a story of sorts. Childlike scrawls illustrated a happy family at the park, but some drawings were smeared, messy, like they had been scribbled in a hurry. The joy felt twisted, like a fracture in an otherwise perfect image. In that moment, shadows shifted, and a soft giggle floated through the air. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I felt it pulling at me, urging me deeper into the darkness. "Stop it!" I yelled. "Just show yourself!" But the giggle only grew. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I fumbled to pull it out, desperate for a safety net. My hands shook as I tried to navigate through the screen. I was about to call for help when the lights flickered again, this time swirling in chaotic flashes. A chilling voice cut through the noise. "You shouldn't meddle in our fun." The voice was high-pitched, childlike, yet menacing, like it belonged to one of the kids in the photo. I froze, my mind racing. Fun? What did that even mean? I turned, ready to retreat out of the apartment, but before I could react, I felt a rush of wind sweep through the room. Papers flew into the air, swirling around me like autumn leaves in a storm. The laughter grew louder, and my heart thundered with terror. In the chaos, I noticed something white flickering amidst the storm of papers. I reached for it, and as I pulled it from the air, I realized it was a crumpled piece of paper. I unfolded it quickly, my hands barely functioning. My breath caught as I read the words scrawled across it. "Help us." The voices crescendoed, now overlapping, and I knew I couldn't stay any longer. Just as I turned to flee, I heard the whispers shift into a single phrase that made my blood run cold. "You can't leave." Barely finding my footing, I darted toward the door, but something yanked at my ankle. I fell, dropping my phone, the screen shattering against the floor with a deafening crack. I scrambled to pull myself up, fear flooding my veins. With a final burst of adrenaline, I pushed through the door into the hallway, but the laughter followed me, wrapping tighter around me like a vice. I had entered a nightmare, and the only thing I was sure of was that the evening had only just begun. The hallway was dark, but I could still hear that laughter echoing behind me. I took off running, my shoes slapping against the cold tile floor. I didn't know where I was going, I just needed to escape. Panic surged in me as I reached the stairwell at the end of the hall. I rushed down the steps, my breath coming in short gasps. The endless laughter faded slightly, but the sense of being followed kept my heart racing. I burst through the door and into the lobby, skidding to a halt. I glanced around, hoping to find someone, anyone, who could help. But the lobby was empty, the dim lights flickering as if in communication with the shadows. I considered my options. Should I call the police? My fingers fumbled for my phone, but then I remembered the shattering screen, the lifeline now useless. A cold chill swept through the room, and I shivered. "This can't be happening," I muttered under my breath. I felt utterly trapped. The walls pressed in on me, and the faint laughter curled around just outside the door like a predator waiting for its prey. I approached the reception desk, hoping to find a landline or at least someone who could explain this madness. I leaned over the counter, my fingertips brushing against the dusty surface. There was a ledger, cracked and old, the pages yellowed. I opened it, my eyes scanning the names of past tenants. That's when something caught my attention. A name I recognized. Lila Hargrove, I whispered. I had seen that name on a crumpled note during my earlier search in the apartment. My heart raced as I quickly flipped through the pages. Next to her name was a date, June 1997. I needed to know more. The memories of the previous occupants felt like threads pulling me deeper into this mystery, but I was terrified of what that could mean. Just then, I heard a loud thump from behind me. I spun around, convinced something had entered the building. The door to the stairwell swung open, but no one emerged. My skin prickled, and I backed away from the desk. The laughter was back, drifting through the air like it had some sort of power over me. Then I saw it. A shadow moved just outside the lobby, framed in the doorway. Instinct kicked in, and I sprinted toward the second exit. As I yanked it open, I felt a cold breeze push against my back like a warning. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder. The shadow was gone, but laughter still filled the air, taunting me. I stepped outside into the night, the chill biting at my skin. The street was deserted, but a sudden rush of urgency made my feet move. I had to find more about Lila Hargrove, the mystery that tied everything together. I needed to understand why someone was calling for help before it was too late. But as I turned to leave the building, something deep inside warned me. This was only the beginning. The streets felt foreign as I walked aimlessly, my mind racing. Lila Hargrove. The name echoed in my thoughts like a haunting refrain. I couldn't shake off the fear, the laughter lingering in the back of my mind. I needed answers. I spotted a small diner at the end of the block, the neon lights flickering like a lighthouse in this storm of uncertainty. Maybe someone inside had heard of Lila, or at least I could find a phone to call for help. As I stepped inside, the warm air wrapped around me like a blanket, but the sense of dread didn't leave. The diner was nearly empty, with only a few patrons nursing their drinks in the twilight shadows. I approached the counter, trying to appear calm despite the turmoil inside me. The waitress, a tired-looking woman with deep lines etched into her face, glanced up from wiping the counter. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice weary but kind. "I need to know about Lila Hargrove," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you know her?" Her expression changed, fear flickering in her eyes. "You shouldn't be asking about her. No one talks about Lila." "Why not?" I pressed, a mix of frustration and concern bubbling up within me. The waitress hesitated, looking around like she was checking for eavesdroppers. Something happened to her in that building. You should stay away from it. Things aren't right there. What things? I leaned in, desperate for information. She's connected to something. I can feel it. I need to understand. Just go home, she urged, her voice lowering. Some things are better left buried, you hear me? You're just stirring up trouble. Her words ignited a fire inside me. I couldn't just walk away now. I thought of the ledger, the name, and the weight of her unfinished story dragging me down. I can't, I replied, determination hardening my resolve. I owe it to her to know the truth. Then, as if the diner reacted to my insistence, the lights flickered again. I tilted my head, and through the window I saw a figure standing beyond the glass. A woman, thin and ghostly, her face hidden by shadow, but eyes glimmering like distant stars. "Do you see her?" I gasped, pointing out the window. The waitress turned sharply, her face draining of color. "Get away from there!" she shouted, but it was too late. The figure stepped closer, and the laughter I had heard earlier came rushing back, louder, clearer, almost triumphant. I stumbled back, heart racing. I had to decide. I could turn and run, escape the madness that was closing in on me, or I could confront whatever this was, whatever Lila's story had become. With tremors coursing through me, I reached for the diner door, ready to face whatever lay ahead. I didn't know who that woman was, but part of me felt drawn to her, like an anchor in uncertain waters. Then the door slammed shut behind me, and everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, but the chill in my bones and the rapid beat of my heart told me otherwise. I blinked, waiting for my eyes to adjust, and then I realized I was still standing outside the diner. The window now reflected my pale face, twisted in fear. I turned to look for the woman, but she was gone, just like that. My skin crawled with the absence of her presence. Panic clawed at my throat, but I forced myself to breathe. Should I go back inside? The waitress's warning echoed in my mind, more urgent than before. Instead, I took a step away from the diner. I needed to clear my head. Maybe walking would help. I needed to think without the haunting shadows of that diner hanging over me. But as I moved, the streetlights flickered. The darkness seemed to shift around me, creeping in like something alive. I felt the weight of unseen eyes watching my every move. I quickened my pace, but glanced back over my shoulder. No one was there, just a few distant cars and that same cold wind that whispered secrets I couldn't hear. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fumbled with it, heart racing again. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Hello?" My voice sounded far too small. "Stay away from Lila," a voice hissed, distorted and static heavy. It wasn't threatening, but there was a knowing tone that made my skin itch. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The line went dead before I even found my courage. I shook my head, panic swirling around me like a storm. Lila's name was becoming a curse, wrapping tighter around my mind with every moment. I couldn't just give up, not now. I pulled out my phone again and searched for information about Lila. What had happened in that building? Just then, a figure crossed my path, moving quickly and with purpose. At first, I thought it was merely a shadow, but as I took another step, I realized it was a man. His face was obscured by a hood, but there was something in his stance that seemed familiar. "Hey," I called out, "do you know who Lila Hargrove is?" He paused, glancing over his shoulder. I could see his features now, bruised and haggard, as if he had been running from something. "You shouldn't be asking," he muttered, his voice low but urgent. "Get out of here while you can." Before I could ask him anything else, he bolted down a side street and disappeared. Just like that, I lost my only chance at answers. My breath quickened again, and doubt washed over me. I felt trapped in this relentless pursuit of a ghost. I stepped back toward the diner, drawn by the thought of finding the waitress again. Maybe she would help me, explain why everyone seemed so afraid, but deep down I could feel it, a sense that uncovering Lila's story would cost me, perhaps more than I was ready to pay. That's when I heard it, a faint wailing sound echoing off the buildings. It was different from the laughter, but just as unsettling. It drew me in like a moth to a flame. I hesitated, torn between the urge to run towards the sound and the instinct to protect myself. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. I squinted through the shadows, heart pounding again. Someone was there. I took a cautious step forward, squinting into the dark. The figure was taller than me and cloaked, but I felt a jolt of recognition. "Are you Lila?" I called out, my voice shaking slightly. The figure hesitated before slowly turning towards me. "No," the woman replied, her tone flat and abrupt. She stepped into the light from a nearby street lamp, revealing a gaunt face framed by tangled hair. I could see now that her eyes were wide and frantic, darting around as if expecting someone to pounce at any moment. "You're in the wrong place." "What do you mean?" I asked, heart racing. "Do you know where she is?" My desperation was palpable even to me. "Everyone's looking for her," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." Despite my fear, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to learn more. "Why? What happened to her?" The woman glanced behind her as if someone might be lurking in the shadows. "It's not safe. You need to leave. They won't stop until—" Her words were cut off by a loud crash nearby. Instinctively, I stepped back, my heart hammering in my chest. The woman's eyes widened further. "They're here!" She turned to flee, darting into the darkness. "Wait!" I shouted. But she was gone in an instant, disappearing into the maze of alleys. I was left alone. The chill in the air turned more biting, and the wailing sound from before grew louder. It twisted in my gut, a haunting melody of fear and sadness. I felt the pull of the sound, compelling me forward against my better judgment. I hesitated, battling my instincts. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to run, but curiosity grabbed hold. I needed to know what was making that noise. So I took a deep breath and moved towards it, turning a corner into an alleyway lit only by flickering bulbs. As I walked deeper into the shadows, I spotted something lying on the ground. A small, dark object. I stepped closer, my heart racing with anticipation. When I knelt to pick it up, my breath hitched. It was a cell phone, cracked and grimy, but there was something familiar about it. I turned it over and saw a picture on the screen, Lila smiling, her eyes bright. It was taken somewhere outside, the sun shining down on her, a stark contrast to where I was standing now. But then I noticed something else. In the corner of the picture, a shadow loomed, almost hidden, but there if you looked closely. I felt a chill creep down my spine. Someone had been watching her. Before I could analyze the implications, the air grew heavy and the wailing intensified, wrapping around me like a fog. Then, silence fell. The world around me stilled, every sound fading to nothing. I looked around, confused, breath quickening. An instant later, the alley erupted in chaos. A figure dashed past me, knocking into my shoulder hard enough to send me stumbling. I turned but saw nothing but darkness. Panic ignited within me. I had to get out. I couldn't breathe. Before I could think, I sprinted back toward the street, desperate for safety. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a shape in the distance, a figure emerging from behind a dumpster. I stopped dead, unable to move. I could feel it then, the gaze of someone watching. And that's when everything went black. I jolted awake in a cold sweat, the taste of panic still in my mouth. The surroundings were unfamiliar. Darkness hung heavily around me, as if someone had draped a thick curtain over the world. I pushed myself up, blinking against the shadows. Where was I? The faint glow of a street lamp illuminated the alley, a sliver of light in the murky void. My heart raced as I took stock of my surroundings. I was still in the alley, but now the air felt charged, heavier somehow. I reached for my phone, but I remembered the cracked screen was gone, lost in the chaos. Footsteps echoed in the distance, pulling my attention. I strained to listen, trying to discern if they were approaching or receding. Adrenaline surged through me. Was it them? I glanced back, expecting someone to leap out from the shadows. Instead, I noticed a door ajar on the far side of the alley. It seemed to beckon me, promising some sort of refuge. I stumbled toward it, desperate. Should I go inside? The footsteps grew louder. My heart thudded louder. Please, I murmured, closing my eyes briefly. I opted for the door. I slipped inside, closing it softly behind me. The moment the latch clicked, I felt a wave of relief welcome me into the small, dim room. It was cluttered with discarded furniture, shadows playing tricks with my eyes. I caught my breath, listening intently, trying to determine if anyone had followed me. The footsteps faded to silence. I was alone, but not safe. I moved deeper into the room, and a faint light flickered from the far corner, revealing a small window too high to reach. I reached into my pocket, hoping to find something. The weight of the world rested heavily on me. Then I touched a crumpled note. Lila's handwriting. "Find me," it read, but the last couple of words were smeared, almost illegible. I felt a jolt. It was a clue. But where? I took a deep breath, the smell of must and something else, something metallic, filling my lungs. The panic that had abated returned with renewed vigor. I needed to piece this together. Could she be nearby? Did she leave this for me? Suddenly I heard something outside, a low grating sound followed by a soft thud. I froze, straining to listen. It was coming from the door I had just closed. Heavy footsteps paused just outside. The silence settled again, stretching uncomfortably until I realized what came next would change everything. "It's not safe for you here," a gruff voice said from beyond the door. I recognized it immediately, the same voice that had echoed during my confrontation with the woman. A chill coursed through me. I shuffled back against the wall, my heart racing through fear and confusion. The door rattled lightly, a reminder of the danger lurking just beyond. "Lila is in danger." The voice dripped with urgency. "You need to trust me." I searched myself for an answer. Could I trust him? Could I trust anyone? Just then, I caught a flicker of movement outside the window. Shapes moved past, darting quickly in and out of the light. Then I spotted something, the glint of metal. A knife? No, it wasn't just a knife. It looked like a gun. And in that moment I knew. I was not just running for Lila anymore. I was running for my life. Then the voice called out again, louder this time. "You don't have much time." That's when I made my choice. I opened the door, heart pounding. The cool night air hit me, mixed with the sharp scent of rain. "I'm coming out," I called, trying to sound more decisive than I felt. The figure stepped into view, a man in a dark jacket, face partially hidden by a hood. "Good. We need to move. Now." His voice was low, urgent. "Who are you?" I pressed, dread pooling in my stomach. "Just someone trying to help you." "And Lila," he said, darting glances toward the alley entrance. "But we don't have time for explanations. They're coming." I bit my lip, a swirl of confusion threatening to tip me back into panic. "Who's coming?" The man didn't answer directly. Instead, he waved me forward. "You want to find Lila? We have to reach the building down the street. It won't be safe here. Trust me, please." I hesitated. The darkness seemed alive with impending danger, but I couldn't keep hiding, not when Lila was still out there. I stepped into the rain-soaked alley. As soon as I did, a sharp sound pierced through the damp night, something metallic skittering across pavement. My heart raced. What was that? "It's them," the man said, urgency etched in his face. I didn't look, but I felt the threat looming. I followed him further into the shadows, our movements hurried and quiet. "Why should I trust you?" I asked, needing some sort of reassurance. "Because they're hunting you both," he replied, glancing back toward the alley entrance. I saw what happened. We need to figure out our next move, but we can't do it here. Just stay close. I nodded, my mind racing. I had seen glimpses of their faces, buried in memories of chaos and fear. But who were they really? Suddenly, the sound of voices reached us, muffled but unmistakable. They were not far, winding through the darkness like shadows searching for light. "Quick, this way!" the man hissed, pulling me toward a nearby side street. I followed, fighting the urge to scream. I had no idea if I could trust him, but the danger was everywhere, and I had no other choice. We pressed against the brick wall, hearts hammering in sync. I wanted to ask him everything, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. "Listen," he murmured, eyes scanning the street. "If we're quiet, we might be able to get past them. We'll head to my car." He gestured forward, and my heartbeat thrummed in my ears. Trust? Then I heard it. A sharp sound, like a twig snapping underfoot, and my stomach dropped. The figures, men with dark clothes and faces obscured, emerged from the shadows. They moved with purpose, weapons gleaming under the scarce streetlight. "Move!" my companion urged, grabbing my arm. I pulled back, fear locking my muscles. "What if... now?" He was adamant, pulling me along. I sprinted, panic fueling my steps. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I was running toward something more than just survival. I was running toward the truth. As we turned the corner, I spotted his car, a rusted sedan barely hanging on. "Get in," he urged. I hesitated, glancing back one last time. That was when I saw the one in front, a flash of dark eyes locking onto mine, and everything changed again. I jumped into the car, slamming the door behind me, just as my heart leaped into my throat. The man climbed in quickly, glancing in every direction as he turned the key in the ignition. The engine sputtered to life, but it felt like a heartbeat struggling against a heavy weight. I could still hear distant laughter echoing in my mind, drawing closer with each passing moment. "Drive!" I urged, voice shaky with urgency. He didn't need to be told twice. He slammed the gear into drive, and we shot out of the alley into the dark street. Rain pelted the windshield, streaking the world outside into a blur. I pressed my palms against the glass, desperate for a glimpse of what we were leaving behind, but the shadows lurked thick and threatening. "Who were those people?" I asked, trying to catch my breath. He didn't answer immediately, his focus solely on the road ahead. "They're the reason Lila disappeared," he muttered. "And now they're after you, too." Those words landed heavy in my gut. But why me? "Because you're connected to her." He turned to look at me, his gaze intense. "You don't know the half of it." My mind raced. "Then tell me. I need to understand what's happening." He hesitated, glancing at the rearview mirror, as if sensing danger was hot on our trail. "Later. Right now, we need to get to safety first." Just then, headlights flashed behind us, illuminating the dark road. My stomach twisted at the sight of another car tailing us closely. "They're coming!" I shouted, gripping the edge of the seat. The man accelerated, the tires skidding slightly on the wet pavement. "Hold on!" he called out, and we jolted forward as he swerved around a corner. "Where are we going?" I yelled against the roar of rain and engine. "To a safe house. I have a plan." His eyes were lit with determination, but I could see the fear etched on his face as he kept glancing at the rearview mirror. The headlights were still there, stubbornly refusing to back off. "Why can't you just tell me what's going on?" I pressed, panic bubbling underneath my skin. "Because it's not just about you or Lila," he said, voice grave. "There are things you won't understand until we're safe. Just trust me." "And if I can't?" "Then you need to find your own answers," he replied sharply, tension coiled tight around us. I swallowed hard, the weight of what was unfolding closing in. I needed answers, but an ominous cloud hung over the truth he was withholding. Could I trust him if he kept me in the dark? The laughter from the apartment lingered in my mind, and I felt it creeping closer, a nagging reminder of the threads tying everything together. Suddenly, the car jolted. "What was that?" I gasped. "Don't look back," he commanded, but I couldn't help myself. I turned, and my breath caught. The car behind us had swerved, gaining speed as it hurled forward like a predator pursuing its prey. "Faster!" I urged, but he was already pushing the gas to the limit. The rain had become a thick veil, cloaking the road ahead and shrouding our getaway in shadows. "Just hold tight!" A tire screeched as he turned sharply, but the pursuing car followed, relentless. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up, swiping through the deluge before us. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. As we hit a straightaway, the man glanced over. "I know this seems futile, but you have to believe me. Lila needs you to help her." "Help her how? I don't even know what's happening." "Please," he urged, voice strained. "When we get to the safe house, I'll explain everything. But right now, we need to survive." A sick feeling churned in my stomach. What if I'm driving straight into something worse? There's only one way to find out. Just as he finished speaking, something flashed through the rain, a bright light, blinding and chaotic. I squinted, uncertain, and before I could think, our car felt the violent jolt of a collision. Metal crunched, glass shattered, and darkness enveloped me. I woke to a disoriented haze, the taste of iron in the air. The rain had stopped, but water pooled around me, rushing into the wreckage. Groans echoed through the darkness, familiar voices that sent icy fingers down my spine. "Lila!" I shouted, scrambling to get out. I kicked at the passenger door, gasping as I pushed through the wreckage. But as I emerged into the mist, the world felt different, almost surreal. Shadows danced and flickered in the distance, and I felt the weight of eyes upon me. The haunting laughter echoed around me again, but now layered with whispers. My heart raced as a figure stepped from the murky shadows. Could it be Lila? I squinted, trying to make sense of the shifting forms gathering around me. Were these the lost children from the drawings, or worse, something else? I hesitated, but that flicker of recognition built a bridge to my hope. "Lila!" I called out again, voice trembling. In the twilight haze, I thought I could see her, an outline taking shape, fear lurking behind her eyes just like mine. But as she moved closer, the laughter resonated louder, warping the light around us. I could feel the pull, a connection as if the night itself beckoned. This was not over. The questions swirled, but one thing was clear. I had walked into a tempest that revealed truths beyond my comprehension. "Help us," she whispered, the sound slicing through the air like a desperate plea. We still had to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. But in that moment, standing on the precipice between safety and nightmare, the answers felt both terrifying and inevitable. And as I stepped closer, the boundary between light and shadow blurred, refusing to yield. I knew that whatever awaited us was more than just a supernatural force. It was a reckoning, a response to the darkened memories and haunted stories waiting to unfold. I gripped my resolve, unwilling to back down. Lila needed me, and in that raw moment I chose to face it all, whatever that may entail.